Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tracy Grunfelder. I work for the Office of Forensic Mental Health Services, and I oversee the Jail Technical Assistance Program. And today we have a presenter by the name of Janelle McFeet. She's the Executive Director of the Statewide Re-entry Council. And she's going to do a presentation on the type of work they're going to be doing in the jail and on the human dignity model, and talk about the progress they've had and some success stories. And it should be a really enlightening presentation. So I'm going to turn this over to her. We also have Kate Ireland. She's my partner. She's going to be operating in the back with the IT. So I'm going to turn it over to Janelle to start the presentation. Take it away, Janelle. Welcome.
I said, thank you, Tracy. I had my mute on. So delighted to be here today. Actually, I really like smaller groups because there can be more conversation. So thanks for joining today. It might be a little bit shorter than an hour as I have to go to Olympic Correction Center to put on a listening circle. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce my colleague, and I think Galen is on. And as Tracy mentioned, I'm the Executive Director for the Washington Statewide Re-entry Council, and talking today a little bit about what the Re-entry Council's plans are for engaging with our jails and tribal jails, but then also looking at that human dignity model inside our jails and what those components are made of. So Galen, if you just wanted to say hi, and he's going to be helping me out today as well once I start my PowerPoint and can't see everyone. So thank you.
Happy to be here. I'm Galen Rusumenti. I'm the program coordinator with the Re-entry Council. So I'll be sharing some links and things related to Janelle's presentation, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, thank you, Galen. And before I get started, I just want to make sure, because I can see no one. Can you see my screen? Just a yes or no?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So just a little refresher for some information around the Statewide Re-entry Council. So again, established by Governor Inslee in 2016 with the goal of improving public safety and outcomes for individuals re-entering the community. So I just wanted to set the stage there. And we do have a relatively new mission and vision statement that I wanted to share with you all today. And the Washington Statewide Re-entry Council currently advocates for Washington laws, and I'll talk about that in a second, investments and attitudes that improve re-entry outcomes and increase public safety by supporting equitable re-entry systems that are more humane and restorative. And you're going to hear those words throughout the presentation today. Our vision is disrupt the cycle of mass incarceration by transforming systems so that each individual is treated equitably and with dignity. And Galen and I and the branding subcommittee have been working on brand promises and taglines. And the council, it keeps coming to the surface about restoring lives by changing systems, transforming reentry by restoring dignity in relationships. And so you're just going to see that through the council's work for the next few years, and taking and that being at the forefront. But today, right now, we're going to talk about jail engagement and how the council's plan is to engage with our jails and tribal jails. And so as we project from 2025 to 2026 and beyond, we really want to increase the Re-entry Council's involvement in jails and tribal jails. Well, how do you do that, right? And one of the ways we do that is through listening circles, through meeting with our local jails, and hopefully all of our jails in the next couple of years. And I wanted to highlight something, and Galen was able to be a part of this as well. For the very first time ever in Yakima County Jail, we were able to put on something called the Concert of Hope, followed by a listening circle. And if Galen, you don't mind putting that in the chat, I really recommend you check this out, because what it's doing is it's bringing art and beauty into places that are void of that, and we follow it with listening circles. And the reason why is this beautiful musical arrangement really sets the stage for people to be vulnerable in listening circles. It was probably, you know, we've done this in every single prison. This the Yakima County Jail circle and concert, I don't have words for. And I get emotional speaking about it because it was really intense. And that's what we would like to bring to the jails. Not only do we want to bring hope through those type of concerts, but also listening circles and figuring out what we can do for the jail population, not just the prison population. One of those things is invite currently incarcerated individuals, not just from the prison, but from the jail, to attend these reentry council and have them share their voice about their experience in jails and things that, you know, they see that are working or not working, and then get more jail staff and WASPIC involved in the reentry council meetings. That's something we're hoping for. Again, we push for any jail related and tribal reentry legislation. That's something that we just ended legislative session, and I'll share a few things about that in a minute. And then Tracy, you know, creating partnerships with the statewide jail technical assistance program, like what we're doing right now, and just getting the word out on what we want to do and starting to build a relationship with WASPIC. So I'm going to pivot a little bit because I'm having help from a lot of people today. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about was a reentry simulation that will be held on June 26th in Olympia at the Capitol. And this is a big deal, and I think we have a flyer up there. I think Galen is going to put in the registration information. But what we really wanted to do with this reentry simulation is to bring awareness to people releasing from jail, not just prison. And what does that look like? And have legislators and judges and attorneys walk through that exercise in empathy, if you will, to give them a feel of what it's like with all of the barriers when you are released. And again, that's June 26th. We still have seats available, and we are doing this in partnership with the Secretary of State's office. And so I think there's limited availability. I think it will be pretty powerful. Then the last thing you'll see on the slide here is the Reentry Council received proviso funding to launch a trauma-informed, we're going to talk about this today, peer-led pilot program at the Linwood Jail. This was the first time ever the council received these funds. In my past work at Port Gamble-Squam Tribe, working with the Welcome Home program, we used a lot of those same modalities and infused it into what we are now calling the Phoenix Project. So in a lot of these human dignity models, you're going to see restorative practices, even through circles, trauma-informed care practices, and peer mentors. And you'll definitely see that. And our goal was to move as far away as possible from a punitive institutionalized model. And so we had 12 years of crafting this and refining it in my current position, and then we were so thankful to work with the Phoenix Project, the Change Program, and be able to implement this. And so with this, and sorry, that was supposed to say not Linwood Jail, but it was supposed to have the Phoenix Project. So all of the Phoenix Project staff are peer mentors and trained in motivational interviewing. They're trained as restorative circle practitioners. They're trained in trauma-informed care. So you can go down the list: risk and needs assessment, recovery coaching, and it's this intense process from pre to post release, and that peer mentorship is the way of the future. And before we get into what is it, I do want to say and make a public announcement, if you will, that the Re-entry Council is in full support of peer mentorship and moving into our jails and prisons to offer this service. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. So what is it? So peer mentorship is a structured support model in which people with lived experience of incarceration provide guidance, provide emotional support, and reentry preparation to those currently incarcerated or recently released. This has been said over and over again in the prison listening circles that we've had for the last 2.5 years. And then actually May and June, we're going to hit hopefully all of the prisons again. And the jails as well, trying to get into some select jails. Because where can peer mentorship happen? It can happen in a lot of places, but what we're trying to say as a council is we want to see this peer programming, and it can be peer coaching, mentoring specialists. There's a lot of different names being thrown around, but to have that move from pre to post release is essential, and that is what they're asking for. They don't want someone who has never been exposed to this life of incarceration. They want to see people who have been through it and who have made it and who can mentor them. And that is straight from the voices of those that are incarcerated, and we back it 100%. Some of the roles, again, this is the coaching role. This is also a time where peer mentors can lead CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, helping with transitional planning. And we talked about recovery coaches, and that's all of them are trained in recovery coaching, and that's a way to support sobriety and wellness in facilities and in the community. And I do apologize for rushing this a bit. So hopefully, and again, I can provide this PowerPoint as well. And I think, Galen, if you're still there, there is a study report that shows up to 15 to 35% reduction in recidivism among those with mentors. And Esther Matthews works with Galen and I, does an incredible job with research and legislative work. And so she gave me a link, and if you're interested, go in there, go into that site, and this is where she gets a lot of her information from. The reason why I highlighted in orange lower recidivism rates and mental health improvements is because this has shown to lower recidivism rates. And also when we were doing our surveys and circles, across the board, two main things: mental health and peer support. So I wanted to call those two things out. And so again, in these models, you have peer support, you have trauma-informed care, which we're going to talk about right now. You have restorative practices and restorative circles and relationship. This is what I believe to be the most important components for a human dignity model. I love this definition. What is trauma-informed care? So TIC is an approach to reentry that recognizes the impact of trauma. Actually recognizes the impact of trauma, right? And I highlighted in yellow because for those of us who work in the field or have lived experience, over 90% of people leaving prison have experienced trauma. And if you're not familiar with trauma-informed care and work with this population, we should probably start taking a look at that. The core principles, which are so beautiful: safety, trustworthy and transparency, peer support, collaboration, like all these things, empowerment and choice. These are just really amazing things that we want to see infused into these human dignity models or pilot projects in jails and in prisons. And so how do you implement some of these things, right? Well, we talked about with the Phoenix project, we trained all of the peer coaches in trauma awareness and de-escalation. We made sure that, again, it was peer-led, that supports models to normalize client responses, and designing non-punitive, flexible services that center the voices of those that are incarcerated. So it's a different approach than we may see in some of our facilities, but benefits to this, okay? Reduced recidivism, better mental health outcomes, increased trust, increased public safety due to better long-term stability and healing. I mean, the list can go on. And I think that as we move forward, this is something that the council really wants to figure out how we can implement this. So we've talked about peer-led, trauma-informed care. Okay, so the other component, and in my opinion, relationship building and listening circles and restorative listening circles, right? And I say this with a little bit of caution because, you know, there's not a lot of evidence-based or research around how relationships is directly related to reducing recidivism, or you know, what that might be on a national level. But I do want to say that at working at the Port Campbell-Slalom Tribe for 12 years, we worked with the MEF Associates, which is a small social policy firm, and they tracked us for many years and looked at that qualitative and quantitative piece, and actually showed through their research and their findings that this reduced our recidivism rate with our target population by 81%. That is extremely high. And I also want to say that this was not right out the gate. This took many years to perfect, and it still is up and running, and they're doing some really groundbreaking work. So sometimes, you know, we definitely want to talk about that research piece and evidence-based piece. And I know after that report was put out, we then were considered best practice for our Native American community for human dignity models. So I just don't want to discredit something that I feel is extremely important to infuse into these models. So the human element, and I'm talking about the Welcome Home program just for a moment because we use that to help craft the Phoenix Project. And so they asked me a while back about what that looked like at Port Gamble. And, you know, I said that ultimately it's the human element that has led to the program's success at the time, and that we're successful because we're a relationship first policy. Like everything else is secondary. It's building relationships first. If you don't have relationships, you don't have a program. It's going to be successful. You know, we see a lot of dehumanizing in the correction system, and we wanted to start something that was completely opposite of that. So understanding the person's story, who they are, their family, and treating people with dignity. And so if this is your first time, you know, learning about healing circles, there's many different types of circles, by the way. There's conflict resolution, there's community building, there's restorative. Carolyn Hartness, who is my colleague and tribal elder and who works closely with me with these circles. In fact, meeting her in just a few minutes. It's a sacred space. It's a place where people can feel they feel heard and valued. They're not judged. No one cross talks. It's not like a town hall experience where people are yelling at each other. You know, it's comfortable. And I think that's so important to feel comfortable in these circles. And I can just give an example of what we do in the jails and the prisons is we craft some questions, you know, but it usually starts with drumming some poems, something that kind of centers us, and then we can dig into some really good work and try to figure out how we can help. Excuse me. So what's so cool about talking circles, and I'll move into restorative circles in a minute, is talking circles can be done in any environment, right? Obviously there's some training that goes along with this, but allowing kind of this free expression in this space to empower people to be heard and have their voice out there and supported is really powerful. And I've been doing these circles not just in the Native community but the non-Native community now for probably 15 years. Hands down, in my opinion, these restorative and talking circles have brought back the best feedback for how we can work with the incarcerated, but also has healed a lot of family, a lot of victims of crime, and I'll move into that next slide to talk about that. So the restorative circle is something completely different than a listening circle. And this is something that we have put together for many years in my prior position, and we're starting to see it kind of take off and more statewide. And so these restorative circles that we put on, Carol and I put on, the person who had harmed is in the circle, the person who was harmed, community members, law enforcement, the peer coaches, and the idea behind this is for everyone to heal and everyone to have a voice. And when they're set up this way, it's not, as I said, it's not crosstalk, it's not being rude. It's actually listening to that person's story and how they got there and making amends and building and having that circle as their community. And so it definitely is away from that idea of that traditional punishment and put downs. It's opposite of that, and we've seen a lot of success from that. And so these circles are adaptable to many different settings. And so when approached in the proper way, the circle can be a very powerful means of bringing some degree of healing to the mind, heart, body, and spirit. And so today, and I'd like to show a video here in a minute, but when we're looking at, okay, how can we design human dignity models in our jail systems? What does that look like? And we did do that in Kitsap County Jail. You want to look at, again, those 4 components, and the top being relationship building, right? Figuring out who needs to buy into this, what relationships need to be developed and nurtured, and then when you get it started, to make sure that you're incorporating the things that we talked about today. So when all of that is running perfectly and it's all tuned up, and you have, we have some human dignity models sprinkled throughout the state in jails, and components of it in prisons, you then get to see a video that we're going to show right now, and I'm going to stop. I'll stop sharing my screen. And let me, okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I will talk a little bit about the video that you're going to see here in a minute. And Tracy, are you able to pull that up? Or Kate?
Yeah, let me see if I can't find it here.
Okay. And so this video, this was a gentleman from the Phoenix Project, and he was actually in the Linwood court, and we got permission to show this. And when everything's working and everything's running smoothly in these type of programs, this is the success that you see. And I know sometimes when I talk about an 81% reduction in recidivism, people don't necessarily think that's truth. And so it was a small population, so I like to say that, but we have that research and evaluation to back it up, because what we want to say is this is the wave of the future. This is the way of the future. And peer mentoring is at the top. And also, Galen, while Tracy's pulling that up, were you able to put our strategic plan and logic model in the chat?
Yeah, I'll throw them in right now.
Thank you so much.
All right, can you guys see the video getting ready to start?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start it. Here we go.
And then we can't hear it, so sometimes
You can't hear it?
No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you have to share your sound. So when you click on share, then the very top has a slide bar that says include sound.
Over this because no one's ever given me a chance before. And I was looking at a bunch of charges, a bunch of fines, and you were just looking at my case, and for whatever reason, you took mercy on me. And you looked down through my file, and you just said, you know what, Mr. Rawls, I'm going to go ahead and drop all fines. Seems like you're stuck in the system. You're not a bad guy, you just make bad decisions. So I'm just going to give you a chance. I've already hit my gavel, it's already settled. You don't owe me anything. But would you be willing to talk to some gentlemen here from the change program? And I said, after what you've done for me, of course, I'll talk with them, of course. You said it's strictly volunteer, there's no strings attached. So I walked out of this courtroom just bewildered. Why would someone in the justice system give me a chance? You took that chance on me. I took a chance on them. And I wanted to come here to thank you because I'm a success story. I'm no longer homeless. I'm no longer using drugs. I've been free and clear for 44 days now and thriving. And I believe in you, and I believe in the change program. And no strings attached. I'm very grateful and very thankful.
So thanks, Tracy, for showing that. I wanted to show that for two reasons. One, and he did say the change program, but it's interchangeable, the Phoenix project and the change program. But it was a one-year proviso, and we were working with a lot of issues there. But to see that that type of model was infused in the Linwood jail, using everything we talked about today, and to I did want to note that the judge, the commanders and chiefs of the Linwood jail, they were all on board. We had lots of meetings in the beginning. And so when you can get people that are at the top on board with this idea, it really runs a lot smoother. And there is ways to have all sides look at this as a win, especially when you're talking about public safety and reducing recidivism, but you're also talking about changing lives and the human element of this. And so, so that's some of the stuff that I had to share today. That was a half hour, but I would love to take any questions. And that would help probably to get out a little earlier, but I would love to take any questions about the council's work and any work regarding our jails and prisons. So thank you.
Thanks, Janelle. This is Tracy here. So which jails have you actually started this work? So you mentioned the Linwood Jail, which is a relatively new jail, just opened up, I believe, the end of 2024 or early 2025. But what other jails have you already started working with?
So for the Linwood Jail was a big one because that was almost, that was a big proviso because of the huge state deficit that we have. We did not get it again. But we have that, and we have that to show other jails. And so we're in conversations with, as we said, Yakima, I'm doing this off the top of my head, Kitsap County, Whatcom, Clark County, so King County. We're just starting to have conversations with those jails to put on listening circles and potentially the Concerts of Hope, which again, please check out. And just so for 2025, 2026, we're just starting to have kind of conversations with jails, ultimately to have conversations with the incarcerated. And Galen was with me at the Yakima jail, and maybe he wants to speak to his experience there. But it was really raw and real feedback that we can take back to the council and say, hey, this is what Yakima is looking for. This is what Kitsap's looking for. This is what, Whatcom's looking for. And seeing how the council can support that and support, better outcomes from people leaving jail. Our focus, in my experience, has been at the Re-entry Council, focus on prisons. That's great, but we cannot forget our jails and our tribal jails. And that is the push. We have also met with Nisqually. So there's been quite a few conversations that we've started.
Excellent. Thank you. So you mentioned that the importance of getting leadership on board. So was there any resistance? Did you have to have a tactic to say, this is why we need to do this? Maybe we need to look at things a little differently. Was there any resistance that you've encountered so far?
Sure. In two different settings. So I'll speak to the Linwood Jail Phoenix project. We had more support and help with that because Rep Davis, that's her area. And she really worked closely with the mayor, the judge that you saw in the video, Commander Joe Dickinson. So she actually did a lot of the legwork and to get them on board, and showed the program that the Welcome Home program put together at Port Gamble. So she used kind of that model. And so they really wanted to be more of a therapeutic, rehabilitative jail. And so they were on board. But in the beginning, to transition people to understand the importance of this type of work is also changing systems and finding people that are willing to listen, at least listen. And it's sales. Okay, I don't know who all is on the call today, but it's also selling, this idea to our commissioners. It is selling to our chiefs, our governor, our legislators, to get buy-in from the top. That's what we had to do at Port Gamble. I had to get buy-in from the tribal council for that. And actually, Galen, that there's one other thing we can put in the chat just for fun, but it's a documentary of the work that we did at Port Gamble, and Jeremy Sullivan, who was the chairman at the time, he recently passed. He was amazing, but he talks about that. Janelle had to come in and the colleagues and my colleagues had to come in and we had to prove it, right? So they want to see little, it's all about relationships. They want to see that it can make a difference, right? And so we were really taking a risk and dumped a lot of hours into this. So, but starting at the top is absolutely, I would say that would be what you would want to do.
Thank you, Janelle. Okay, is there any other questions from the group? One of the things that it's unfortunate, but WASPIC is having their conference in Spokane this week, and so we don't have as many jail people on this call as I would have liked. But reentry is a topic that they are talking about at the conference, and they're aware of this event that's going on today, and they're also aware of that it's about relationships, and they want to see stuff work too. And so I think that doing things like this, getting information out, sharing information, and actually having a jail that that's going to be a success, or it's already showing some successful partnerships. Other people are going to say, "Hey, this is worthwhile. I think I'll get in on the ground floor as well." So I think you're doing a great job. So thank you today for this presentation, and I know it's just going to get bigger and bigger. And I look forward to the work that you and the council is going to be doing in the upcoming years.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
You bet. Also, next month, I want to let everybody know that we are having, on June 24th, we're having a recovery navigator program that was created in Asotin, in Clarkston, and with the Asotin County Jail. And they're going to be doing a presentation about their collaborative partnerships and the good work that they're doing. So it doesn't have to be a big jail in a big city, but they're doing some great things in the rural counties. So we hope you can join us on June 24th at 12:30. And there'll be an information flyer coming out soon where you can register for that.